With Bitcoin continuing to range between 90 to 100,000 US dollars, is this truly the shakeout before the shakeout, before the fake out, before the final shakeout, fake out, shakeout before the real mommy makeout? So if you understand, there's only probably 1 to 12 more fake outs before the real breakout, mommy makeout. Hit that like and subscribe. As well, there's 14 days left if you do want to participate in a free 100% chance of winning prize pool of over 100,000 US dollars, where you just register and then click this little thing right here, and then you get one of these things. But this is in the top of the description if you're interested in doing that. And without any further ado, let's absolutely and completely take a deep dump into the charts, where we see Bitcoin right now, I'm sure everyone is very well aware, is trading sideways below the 100-day, 21-day, and 50-day moving averages. How do I say this? Something big is coming. And just like we saw back here on January 13th, where we see price was kind of sideways, and then we got this lowest low we've gotten so far of the past 3 months, below 90K. Keep in mind, this is the only time so far since getting above 90K that we crashed below it to about 89,200. Immediately what happened after that was a swing up where we put in a new all-time high. So with being below all these key daily moving averages, if we do get another one of those flash dumpies, especially if we do not put in a lower low, we actually have a higher low, anywhere above 89,000 basically, what I personally expect is a retest of the very least this top channel around $107,000 per coin. But more on that later, and before we dump into more technical analysis, we can look at a few things here. This is one of my favorite posts. I cover it every once in a while. 2016, RIP Bitcoin, it's time to move on. This is when Bitcoin was $400 per coin. How many of you watching this video right now, if you could go back in time and buy as much Bitcoin you could for $400 per Bitcoin, how many of you would do that? I know I would. I would quite literally do anything to make money so that I could dump that money into a $400 Bitcoin. That's a really cheap price. And this is just about 9 years ago, which is a long time, right? I mean, 9 years ago is actually a pretty long time. But the point is, people have been saying Bitcoin is dead forever. The price of Bitcoin right now is at 100. It's right underneath 100,000 US dollars. And people are scared and shaking and crying like little itsy bitsy babies with diapers full of doo-doo. But as well, we see here, the United States of America is turning orange. So far, almost 30 states have proposed Bitcoin-related bills. As I said a couple days ago, I think within the next month, nearly all of these states will have bills in progress. And I think soon we are going to be seeing some of them complete the process and actually have Bitcoin legislation in effect. We also see that Bitcoin is disappearing from exchanges at a pace we have never seen before. Specifically, over the last few weeks, you can see this. This is the exchange reserves. There is going to be a supply shock. There is going to be a massive run to all-time highs and far beyond. But nobody can predict exactly when. The price of Bitcoin could be up here in just a couple of days. Or it could, in a couple of days, we could see it dump all the way down here. And then springboard. I mean, that's the thing. You can see this sideways price action. So far, we have no indications, and I'm going to go over what the indications are, but so far we have no indications of a pump or a dump yet. So far, it is just strictly sideways, quite literally very near just the middle of this range we've been in for 3 months. But that, when it changes, it's going to change fast. We also see that Bitcoin is following the 2021 setup very closely, according to Mr. Crypto. The reversal is just about to start, where currently we're in a pullback before continuation. As well, we see Mr. Crypto also highlighting that we're about to enter the thrill stage, upside moves likely incoming. And we see only 992,000 roughly addresses have more than one Bitcoin. I'm curious how many people out there actually have more than one Bitcoin, because keep in mind, a lot of these addresses are the same person just with multiple addresses. For example, I specifically have way more than one address. I have multiple wallets, I have my crypto spread out in locations as well. So, and I own more than one Bitcoin, but I have many different addresses with more than one Bitcoin, right? And I think a lot of people do the same thing. It's smart to diversify your protection and your storage as well as investments, right? Diversifying in general is just very important. But yeah, I think there's far less than 1 million people with one Bitcoin, considering that there's only about 1 million or a little less than 1 million addresses. The amount of people with an entire Bitcoin or more, I think, is far below that number. We also see Bitcoin peaks 230 to 330 days after breaking above its previous all-time high. If history repeats, Bitcoin still has room to grow and go to top out in Q3 or even early Q4 of this year. Point is, it is coming, and I think it's going to be coming big. And the longer that we trade sideways and we consolidate and all of this good fundamental news is happening and we don't pump, then when we do pump, the higher and the longer we will go, in my opinion. So, I'm not in a rush. If this takes longer, I think that'll end up being more bullish in the long term. It'll just be painful for a lot of participants in the short term. We also see a $1 trillion Bank of Montreal buying $140 million worth of Bitcoin ETFs. Just one more small example of continued adoption, continued growth in the space. And actually, America has more Bitcoiners than student debt holders now. Look at this. Back in 2015, in black is the Americans with student loans. And look how many people held Bitcoin. Americans, held Bitcoin. Look how much it grew to 5 years later, and now look at it. This number is going to increase drastically by 2030, the next 5 years. It's going to be insane. I think by 2030, this chart, student debt's going to look like this, and Bitcoin holders is going to be most of America. We also see that the old model, you work for money, you print it, save your money, devalue it, you invest money, then manipulate it. Now, literally, all you have to do is save it. And you can save in Bitcoin. And not only is there nothing they can do about it, but it's going to keep going up. It has never been more clear to me now that since we have a pro-crypto administration and all of these pro-crypto policies and things happening in the U.S. for the first time ever, I've never been more confident in that fact. I think of Bitcoin as, when I get money, like I don't put it in a bank account. I don't put it in the stock market. I quite literally put it into Bitcoin, and that has worked out insanely well for me over the past 8 years. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. In fact, the only thing I see changing about it is that I think I'm going to actually see greater returns instead of diminishing returns, specifically in the next year or so, because I think things are changing drastically. We also see that Bitcoin is about to follow previous cycles. He's saying, Crypto Diplomat on X is saying he's sure that the top is not in yet. And you can see where cycle tops were after the halvings and where we are now. I don't think we're anywhere close to a top. In fact, if we actually blow this up and we look at this, you can see he's saying that roughly in these green areas is where we are in our current cycle. And you can see in previous cycles, they weren't the tops. And I think that this cycle, honestly, is probably more similar to the 2017 cycle, in my opinion. I've been saying this for months, actually. But I personally think that instead of this muted growth, where, as I've said a million times, I personally think the last cycle in 2021 was a letdown and the weakest cycle by far. But I think this time is fundamentally different. And fundamentally, I think that there's infinite evidence of that. The technicals also seem to validate that. But I think more importantly, the fundamentals are showing that, hey, this time actually could be the cycle, the giga cycle. But yeah, looking at Bitcoin's chart, it is still flat. How many more fake outs, how many more shakeouts, how many more mommy makeouts do we need before the actual breakout, mommy makeout? That remains to be seen. But the weekly chart looks so healthy for Bitcoin. As I said, if we get a crash, if we got a flash dump, I personally think it would get gobbled up. And that would very often, as I tried to highlight, many times those flash crashes actually are precursors to the pumps in bull markets specifically. In bear markets, that's not the case. But in a bull market like we're in now, many times flash crashes actually come right before. They're precursors to the actual breakout and the actual pump and the new all-time highs. But another thing I'm watching is that the DXY is actually looking like it wants to break down. I think the DXY has topped out big time. Look at this candle back on February 3rd. Very interesting candle. But yeah, I think the DXY has topped out. I think the US dollar has room to go down over the next couple of years. S&P as well. You can see very nice consolidation. I think it is going to start breaking out over the next few weeks. Could honestly come any day now, to be honest. Just like Bitcoin's breakout, I think could come any day. Overall, I think this is this is the definition of the calm before the storm. 1000%, that's where I believe we are. I think that things are about to get big, but not only big, I think they're about to get completely mega big. And as well, make sure if you're interested, sign up with the link below, and then you have a chance for free. You get a 100% chance of winning something. Yeah, but all you do is sign up and then you click to draw, and there's other ways you can increase your chances of doing things. But yeah, absolutely very big. Without any further ado,